Doechii dropped an album. And of course it banged. What do you think was gonna happen? But I'm here to talk about these numbers. So what's up? My name is Jacari, and this is Drops. Now, Doechii was born August 14th, 1998, which was a Friday, but that's not even relevant. She's a Psychic 5, simplified from a 14, a Destiny 4, simplified from a 40, then a name number Exalted 8 in the Chaldean system, a name number Exalted 1 in the Vedic system, then a name number 8 simplified from a 44 in the Pythagorean system. But we ain't even here to talk about all that. We're here to talk about the drop, Alligator Bites Never Heal, which came out August 30th, 2024, making it a Psychic 3, simplified from a 30, a Destiny 1 simplified from a 19, and that name number in Chaldean is a 5 simplified from a 77, which simplifies to a 14, an 8 simplified from an 80 in Vedic, and then a name number 6 simplified from 105 in Pythagorean. Now, Doechii's natal chart highlights a level of complexity and chaos and disruption of all sorts, due to the fact that she has that Psychic 5 and that Destiny 4. Both of those have a strong relationality around chaos and disruption. But it's sort of kind of a different type of chaos. 5 is chaotic in its desire to explore and adventure and discover and go on a journey, whereas 4 is chaos, is like, I don't like none of this shit over here. Let's burn it all down. But both of these numbers also highlight high levels of awareness and comprehension. So things around processing, understanding, recognition, and information are highlighted not only in Doechii's psyche, but also her work. Now, that name number Exalted 8 and also the 8 simplified from 44 and then in the Exalted 1, they highlight levels of authority and focus and drive. So there's a lot of passion that comes from her work and from herself. And also people are probably passionate talking about her too. Shit, that's what I'm doing. But one thing I love about name number 8 outside of that legacy placement that they have is the fact that they connect to time. So you might not get your pop at the beginning, but baby, you sure gonna get it at the end. Now, overall, the energy of this project highlights a level of discovery, innovation, introspection, and shit like that. But where does it come from? Mainly the reflection that's sitting supplementary to that Destiny 1. Now, that 3 definitely does highlight the exploration and discovery and desire to explore. 3 is ruled by Jupiter, Mars, and Venus, and it highlights a expansion and a luck and abundance, but also a passion and creativity, and also a level of indulgence, but we'll talk about that later. We can really see how passionate Doechii is about her work in this project, and it's not the fact that she used 3 that made it happen. That 3 is just supportive of that fact. Now, it gets even cooler when we look at how 3 relates to her natal chart. That Psychic 5 she got, yeah, that 3 and that 5 go together real bad. Why? Because of relationality. Relationality is how numbers work together. And there's a lot of subsections, but the one that's highlighted here is rulership. 3 and 5 share a Jupiter rulership. And Jupiter in numerology highlights levels of luck, creative spaces, and social spaces. Because of how much space Jupiter takes up in numerology, on a psychological side, when we see it embodied, not only in a person, but in a project, there can be a high level of introspection and introversion. And 9 times out of 10, it's just because too much is going on outside. Ain't nobody want to see all that. Now, Destiny 1s are great for almost any project for anybody's numerology, but please consult your local numerologist before doing that. The great thing about Destiny 1s is it gives your music and your art and even yourself a new path, a new opportunity, new spaces, because 1 highlights newness. But what it really does is that introspection, because of a reflection. Reflections are 2 numbers that sit on opposite sides of the same vibration. And when you have that, you have a level of pulling in. So it sort of kind of can feel like 2 things are crashing into each other because opposites attract. Think about the magnets. Now, 1 highlights levels of self, starts, and awareness. Now, the shared theme here is awareness that 1 and 9 share. Sort of kind of different types of awareness, though. Conversation for another day. Now, whereas 1 highlights self and this confidence and this consciousness, 9 highlights this unconscious, this other, this separate from self, and also endings. So we can see new topics, new genres, new approaches to vibes and everything like that. Anything you consider new in a project with the Destiny 1. This can also highlight a new path that the artist is trying to take. And on the long term, because 1 highlights newness, starts, beginnings, this is really just the beginning for Doechii. Now, the numerology doesn't have to determine how the project sounds, but it can help you understand how the project is supported long term. And also considering the relationality her natal numbers have to time, as long as she's taking her time and doing what she wants to do for a period of time, whatever time that is, she really gonna see that pay off. Now, there's a playfulness to this project, which is supported by the Psychic 3 of the project, but also the Psychic 5 that she has natally, and also the name number 5 of the project, but moving on. Now, we already talked about 3 and 5's relationality in regards to rulership, but how does Jupiter play into playfulness? Well, I wouldn't really say that it does, but I also won't say that it doesn't. I would say the playfulness is more highlighted by 3's Mars energy and Jupiter's Mercury energy. Considering that Mars in numerology is very passionate, it's very determined, it's very focused, it's very driven, it also needs to get some of that energy off when it's angry or when it's in a state of rage. And with that, we could burn some stuff down, but we also might just go swing on some swings type vibe. 5 is the only number that reflects itself, and we already talked about reflections. They're two numbers that sit on opposite sides of the same vibration, but what happens when you're not going outside yourself? There's not something to balance you out. It's all internal. It sort of kind of stays balled up, but when you're able to let it out in playful spaces, blowing raspberries and shit like that, you see the vibes. It gets out. Now, we really got to talk about the vulnerability of this project too, because not only is she sharing some really personal stories and personal experiences, but there's a whole dialogue with her and her therapist. Now, this is supported by her psychic 5 being the name number of this project, one of the name numbers. Now, your psychic number highlights anything you can consciously understand about yourself, your emotions, your thoughts, your feelings, your relationships, the list goes on. Putting that number as the name number in one of the systems allows you to have the support of getting that point across, of sharing that story, of sharing that space, and letting yourself be vulnerable. And this works because your name number highlights how you're viewed, regarded, and remembered. And when it lines up with your psychic number, you're viewed as who you are. There's a level of clarity there. There's not so many walls there. Now, having 5 is not only the name number, but also the psychic number allows it to hold space for the stories that she's trying to tell. Because 5 is a natural storyteller. It rules over communication and understanding and processing. So it's just bound to happen, especially with the Mercury rulership that it has. But because of all the stories, things can be very diverse and thought-provoking, which I feel like this project is. Now, this project also has a name number 8, which is not only supported by her natal name number 8, but the fact that we're in a universal year, and name numbers highlight how you're viewed, remembered, and regarded. And when there's that alignment there, you have a little bit more support from the universe. Now, 8 is ruled by Saturn and Pluto, and it highlights a lot of complex things like time, boundaries, authority, power, and dynamics around power. We can see this being used to support her stepping into her power and her stories and her journey, but also establishing a level of authority in the industry that she's in. There's a lot of themes around power in that. Now, this project also has a name number 6 in the Pythagorean system, and 6 is ruled by Venus and Jupiter. We already talked about Jupiter, but when we talk about 6 energy, we also get themes around pleasure and indulgence. Now, considering the fact name numbers highlight how you're viewed and regarded and remembered, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people find pleasure in this project and recall it as something that was beautiful that they listened to, something that filled their soul or poured into them in a way that they didn't expect, or helped them even feel seen and understood and had a level of healing, because that's also themes around 6. Now, this project took you on a journey and an adventure in and of itself, but the numbers help support it. And it's not that the numerology has to make the project or has to dictate what's going to be in the project, but it can help you give a better insight into how you should go about supporting your project. And as you can see, not only is the project supported in regards to the numerology that she used for the project, but it also connects back to her natal numerology, which is what you always want to do. The use of 3 as a psychic number supports the creativity and the expansion and the trial and error, but also potential and possibility of her work, of how diverse it can be, how broad it can be. With that Destiny 1, it opened up a new door, a new opportunity, a new space, a new topic, a new genre, a new vibe for her to really step into that we might not have seen in the genre, but also maybe not from her. And the layers of the name numbers of this project not only support her natal numerology in more ways than one, but also support the energy and the journey and the adventure that this project takes you on. So to sum it up, the project was great, but so is the numerology. And I'm so excited to see what's next for Doechii, because next year is Universal 9 year, and her personal years are going to be a 4 and a 5, which lines up perfectly with her psychic and her destiny numbers. And those two numbers have really great relationality with the number 9. Now, it's not to say that the next year is going to be automatically a good one, but it's going to be impactful. So I'm really hoping Doechii puts something out to capitalize off that energy, because child, it's going to be a big one. But before dropping your next project, make sure you consult a numerologist, because they can get you right. I'm Jacari, and this was Drops.